Are you okay, baby?
I catch my breath.
You okay?
Oh, Henry.
Oh, my God.
I'm shaking.
Do you believe what just happened?
I know, honey. Oh, my God. You're so brave.
Not really.
Oh, you are, honey.
no.
You're a hero. You saved our lives.
Well, maybe just a little bit. Come on, are you okay now? Come on. Huh?
Henry, I saw my whole life flash before my eyes. All I could think of was, I'd never see my children again.
Did you think about me at all?
Oh, there was so little time.
You had time for your whole life to pass in front of your eyes and I wasn't in it?
Oh, Henry, please don't be so sensitive. Of course I'm going to think about the children at a time like this. They're my kids. They need me. I mean, I've all they've got.
And who am I, the anonymous sperm donor?
Well, you might as well be. You asked for that one.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the way you're treating Susan, for one, Henry.
Let me just say, we have to learn to think about each other more because the kids are gone and we're all we have.
Whoa, you make that sound appealing.
Because unless we find some way of relating to each other and find some common ground, we are gonna...
What, Henry? We're gonna get a divorce? Is that what you're trying to say?
What I'm saying is that you have to learn to let go. And you have to get over this fear of not being able to play mommy anymore.
I want a divorce.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I am your host, Jason Bishop, and of course with me in the other chair is Sam Stepanenko.
And I'm still here.
Back from out of town.
Yeah. Bula, everybody.
Get it? Out of town?
Out of town.
Because we're doing out of town.
It was a gimme. I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
It was a good gimme.
Silver platter, right?
Yeah, it was. It was definitely right there waiting for the taking.
Yeah. Trish Coughlin back from Fiji.
I am. Bula. My trip went a lot better than any of these people's trips went.
I am happy to see you do not have any shark bites in you.
No, I don't. I only ever got bit by a tiny little fish.
A fish?
Oh, he was furious at me. It was like I had my hand, I guess, on his piece of coral. He was very mad. I don't know if you've ever seen a fish look just enraged. It's very funny.
It is funny. I have seen it. Yes, it is funny.
Just that death stare.
Was it like a flounder type of fish?
No, it was like this little black one with like these big eyes on either side, and like you could just see him narrowing them at me.
He gave you the death glare.
He really did. The sharks were fine. They didn't want to nibble on me. They were just curious and looked and swam, and they were beautiful. It was awesome.
So it was the tiny little fish.
Yep. Beware of the
really
fish.
Really possessive of his coral.
The sharks.
So apparently the small person syndrome carries over to small other animals and living beings.
Oh,
absolutely.
I mean, even tiny little dogs, they're always like the bravest and stupidest.
Mm-hmm.
As evidenced by my dog. She's not stupid, but she's definitely doesn't realize she's a small dog.
Yes, yeah, most of the small dogs that my family had no idea they were a lot smaller than what they were barking at.
Yeah.
I'm here to defend.
That's nice. You are a chicken nugget.
Exactly. Does that to a big dog, and the big dog's like, what do I do with this?
Yeah, I've seen that face too.
Okay, today we are talking about The Out of Towners, based on the Neil Simon script. It was originally developed for a play, and then they realized they had too much play. So he kind of chopped it out of the play, and he's like, this probably would work better as a screenplay.
Yeah.
But it is more play than anything else. There's more play than character.
Yeah. There's a lot of dialogue. You can tell it was adapted from a
super
stage play.
The first thing I thought was, before even doing any reading on it, I'm like, this feels like a stage thing.
Yeah, just everything about it. I'm going to say it right now. I found George to be one of the most unlikable characters I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Which is,
you.
yeah, and as did I. I mean, most of what happens to them in New York is George's fault. If he would just slow the fuck down and calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
And...
Well,
it makes it really a tough watch because you don't like him.
You have no empathy for him whatsoever.
You kind of like the wife, but she doesn't get enough to say most of the time because he's cutting her off all the time.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, it's really evidence of a really old dichotomy between a married couple, right? Is the man is the head of the household and the wife is supposed to be meek and mild. And that's way outdated, and it was way outdated in 1970 when this movie came out.
Yep.
Well, I mean, this is 1970, probably was being shot in the late 60s before it actually hit the theaters. But yeah, I'm not going to give it too much forgiveness. It did not get the greatest reviews, despite actually having fairly decent Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb ratings. IMDb rated it 7.1 out of 10.
That boggled my mind.
Bafflingly high. And Rotten Tomatoes was more meager 60% with an audience score of 68%. I'll give him some credit, like Jack Lemmon. You really want to like him because he's Jack Lemmon. Let's just get that out of the way. It's fucking Jack Lemmon, and he's really good in it, but you can't like him.
Well, I was thinking about that after watching this. I'm thinking, have I ever seen a movie where I actually liked the character Jack Lemmon plays?
I like him in Odd Couple.
Yeah, Odd
I like
Couple.
him in...
As frustrating as he is, I like him in Odd Couple.
Yeah, I like him in Grumpy Old Men as well.
Grumpy Old Man is probably the one where I like him the most, for sure. Odd Couple, he's not as unlikable, but he's still a very similar type of character, where he's uptight and rigid, and
I guess that was kind of his specialty, really.
It was, yeah.
Manic character.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of specialties, the woman who plays his wife, Sandy Dennis, her specialty is horrible nights spent by a poor wife of some guy, because she was also in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and that is another nightmare night.
I figured if anybody was in the room who could do a really good impression of her, oh my God, would be you.
Oh my God!
That's it. I knew you'd nail it.
I did. Thank you. I was practicing. I'm like, I got to do this.
Yeah, and she was so lovely. Like, I really, really enjoyed her. Like, she was my favorite part of the movie.
This is about a 100-minute movie, and honestly, it is so... I don't like cringe humor for most part, and this is pretty much the whole movie. But it has a very sweet ending that almost redeems it for me. Almost redeems the rest of the ride, because it's so much selfishness within George, Jack Lemmon's character, that he can be so unbearable at times. And you're gradually seeing Sandy Dennis's character, his wife Gwen, gain her voice throughout all of this nonsense.
Yeah, she does become a stronger character by the end of the movie, and
when he realizes how selfish he's been trying to get to this job interview, it's like, New York doesn't want us.
yes.
This is what it's going to be like. Let's not stay here.
Yeah, and I mean, there's that lovely speech that she does at the end, and I like that's. I mean, it is the high point of the film, but it's just the journey there really does make it challenging to get to the reward.
I guess you kind of enjoy when something bad happens to George, because he is like he so deserves it. And then right near the end, when he gets back to the hotel to get their bags, and there's that dude who is on the same flight that got shunted into Boston, and he just took the offer with the layover, got in on time, and checked into his hotel because he called ahead saying, hey, we got laid over.
Because George's impatience is the one, like you said, he's the one who gets him into all this trouble because of his impatience.
So there's that nice point there saying, hey, if you would have just slowed down, you would have ended up in the same place.
Exactly.
And we got there a lot easier.
Yes.
And thinking it through is like, you would have been in Boston. You would have been there with your luggage. You would have had your key because you would have been
they wouldn't have had their luggage because their
No.
luggage was still back in Ohio.
Oh, no, but I thought, it would probably have gotten there by the next day.
It would have gotten to, it would have gotten to their
Boston.
hotel would have gotten back to their hotel in New York by the
And
when
they
arrived.
might have had some resources if they didn't check all the luggage, because there was a carry-on that Gwen was going to keep, and then he's like, no. And then, of course, his stubbornness. Oh, I got us booked at this fancy restaurant in New York.
Oh, yeah,
don't
we don't
eat on
eat
the plane.
anything.
You wouldn't even let her drink anything.
Oh yeah, he was a horrible, domineering man. Right from the get-go, it's like, oh, I'm not going to like this character.
No. And
I mean, it's
coffee
no
won't ruin your
wonder
appetite.
Yeah, and it's no wonder they softened him up.
Oh, he's
Steve
so much more
Martin
likable in the remake. And Steve Martin is wonderful.
And it's got worse reviews, and I'm unsure why. There's a little more sentimentality here. I mean, granted, I don't think the humor lands any better than it did in the first one.
Yeah.
There are a few moments that I enjoyed a little bit more. In the original...
Honestly, John Cleese steals that show.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. And Goldie Hawn. I think that
she's a much more outspoken character.
Yeah, and
I really enjoyed her.
she's really entertaining in this.
I mean, there's a lot of chemistry between her and Steve Martin, which is why they've worked together before.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was kind of more of a pleasure to watch them, even in a mediocre movie.
Yes, yeah, and because their chemistry is so good, and because there's a partnership there, and they talk about it throughout the movie about their partnership and how that partnership is kind of broken right now.
Yeah, that's something too. There isn't enough character drama between Gwen and George in the original film, and it is just race to interview. That is it.
Yeah.
And everything that happens to them in between.
Yeah. I got weak ankles. I
need some tape. Oh my God, I lost my left eyelash.
And, meanwhile, right away in the remake, we realize, okay, there's kind of an empty nest syndrome. They're stuck in a rut, and there's not a lot of romance within their marriage at the moment. Goldie Hawn still has it, but... Yeah. They actually changed the name of the characters in that movie.
Yeah.
It was Henry and Nancy Clark. And Henry, it takes him a while for him to rediscover that they still love each other.
Yeah.
And they've got to adapt to this new lifestyle of being alone together again instead of taking care of their kids that have now left for... One's gone abroad, the other one's acting in New York and having left med school and sucking their credit card dry.
Yes, which was a wonderful sub-story. I like that because it helped add to the conflict between them. Like, it really helped develop that relationship that was completely missing in the first one, because it was simply George dominates Gwen all the way through the movie, and she whines.
And they just need to get to the interview, whereas in this one it's sort of like, I know. I didn't have any idea who those two are. I just know George is just a pain in the ass who probably deserved everything that came his way. And I didn't know anything about Gwen. But then with Henry and Nancy, I was like, I have more of an idea where this happened.
Before they even get on the plane.
Yeah.
Before they even get on the plane, you have a sort of a sense of who they are.
Which is what you need to really, even to like them. Like, maybe if they'd invested in their relationship, if we'd figured out more about Gwen and George beforehand, maybe we could have possibly liked him, but we don't know. We just see this part of him starting on the plane.
And that goes back to how you can tell it was a play adapted to film, because in plays you don't always get that character development right at the beginning. You're kind of stepping into their lives as they're happening. Right? Whereas with film, you generally get some backstory or something to develop them so that you can get engaged with them.
I was more engaged with Billy D. Williams as the claims guy at the luggage place. I was like going, let's follow his journey.
It is interesting because there's quite a few little cameos of people who weren't stars at that point. They weren't. They were just struggling actors getting some breaks who'd go on to bigger and better things.
Absolutely.
And they tried to make some cameos happen in the other one as well, but it worked a little differently. It kind of worked backwards rather than careers that had naturally built and they became something. These were careers that already were there,
well established, and they're playing. I love the one with Andrew Lloyd Webber, where he plays himself but not himself.
Oh, it wasn't Andrew Lloyd Webber.
No,
that was an actor playing Andrew Lloyd Webber, but lying about being Andrew Lloyd Webber. That was actually Tim Reese.
Yeah, he did a good job, because it
would have been better if it actually had been the real Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
Oh, but did you catch the throwaway line? He's like, no, put your credit card back in your sock in case we run into Stephen Sondheim.
Yes, that was great. Yeah.
It does come into play later because he's happy to have that credit card. That's, of course, that's when we find out that the other kid is bled them dry.
Their marriage has secrets.
Yes, and that's part of what the remake's about, is uncovering the secrets they've been keeping from each other, as well as rekindling the magic of their relationship. All right, well, I think that's a good setup. Let's get to our first trailer of The Out-of-Towners from 1970.
Is that a beautiful city, or is that a beautiful city?
Oh, that's a beautiful city. George, they can't find the bag.
They lost our luggage! Like 5, 4, 3. I say,
Jack Lemmon and Sandy Dennis are the out-of-towners in Neil Simon's outrageous comedy about New York City.
Hold it. Huh? What's wrong? Put your hands up.
Oh, my God!
Against that wall. Don't make a sound.
When they take you for an out-of-towner, they really take you.
You mean to tell me that I was mugged while I was sleeping?
You're not telling me you didn't hold the room for me.
Man, move it!
Oh, my God, we're being kidnapped.
I'm a business executive from Ohio.
Folks.
Look, I've got no place to sleep. I've got no money. I want to know what the city intends to do about this.
What we need now is hope and courage.
We don't surrender. You hear that, New York? We don't quit. Now, how do you like that? You go ahead and you can rob me and starve me and break my teeth and my wife's ankles. I'm not leaving.
That was the Out-of-Towners from 1970, directed by Arthur Hiller, who's directed things like Silver Streak, Love Story, See No Evil, and Hear No Evil. I never did find a budget for this movie, but I only found a rental take, actually, which was $7.25 million, so it did pretty good in the rental market.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the box office was for this film. Must have been half decent, I guess. Probably the rentals alone were probably like, hey, something's happening here.
Yeah.
Because it probably wasn't that expensive to make. You're shooting in a lot of locations in New York, mind you. Just blocking alone in New York is probably crazy.
Even in 1970,
Yeah, and I can see where there were some certain changes, like all the strikes that were happening in this movie didn't happen in the second one, because they were a lot closer to when these strikes had actually happened. There was only like 4 or 5 years earlier where they did have transit strikes and garbage strikes, and they actually just recently had a garbage thing in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully that's resolved. I don't live there, so I don't know.
Garbage strikes are terrible. I was at LAX. I didn't smell anything out of the wood.
They must have got that
was
resolved.
different. I think it was resolved.
Well, LAX is kind of in Watts, so
I don't know.
Not the
LAX
best
is a
neighborhood.
very interesting, unusually made airport.
I like LAX. I had a lot of fun with last time I had to hang out in LAX. I was going for my flight, and then they're like, oh, they got you laying over Vancouver. You want just a direct flight? You'll get in sooner, but you're going to have to sit around for a while. So I think I was stuck in the airport for like 5 hours. So I just got myself a seat in the bar and just started talking to people who were coming off international flights.
Sounds like fun.
It was.
It was okay. Well, except there's one area we were. There's 2 bars on this one level, and the washrooms aren't there.
Trying to remember, I seem to think I had to literally go several buildings over just to find a washroom.
Yeah, like why fill people up with liquid and not have a washroom there?
Especially beer or... Yeah, because it's a thing. The more beer you drink, the more you go.
Yeah.
Once you break that seal, and I had a lady beside me, and they delivered her on like a chair because her knee was messed up. And so they kind of dumped her there, and then she had to be there for hours. So and she had to go to the bathroom, but it was like too hard for her to go to. So I had to I escorted her downstairs to get her to the bathroom so that she could go before I left. At least she wasn't stuck there having to pee.
Oh, terrible. LAX, build some more bathrooms.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my note for LAX. Otherwise, kind of a nice airport, but more bathrooms.
For sure. Okay, this movie, of course, starred Jack Lemmon as George Kellerman. We've actually never got to talk to him before, but he's been lots of cool stuff, and I'm glad we do get to talk about him. It's a shame it's one we didn't like that much.
Yes.
I know I didn't. I know Sam didn't. I'm guessing Trish not so much either. You usually got a softer spot for comedy, so.
I do, but this isn't.
But it isn't funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
And when you talk about cringe comedy, that's also not my sweet spot for comedy.
Yeah. His performance is really good.
It is really good.
Yeah. He is very focused in his character. I'll give him that. There's nothing wrong with the performance. It's just the movie's not that good. Yeah. It's not the greatest of scripts. Sandy Dennis, we mentioned, is Gwen, his wife. We've never talked about her before either. She was in Sweet November and 976 Evil.
Yeah. And also, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Yes.
So she's had some bad nights.
Yes.
I wanted to bring up Sandy Barron, who is a minor character of the TV Man, but he played Kip in last week's episode, Targets.
Did he really?
He did.
really?
He was the radio DJ guy.
Oh, how about that? I missed that one.
Guy.
I
Now
dug
I see
deep
it.
too, and I missed that.
Yeah.
There you go. Philip Burns was one of the police officers. He was in Flashdance. Graham Jarvis was Murray. He was in Misery. Paul Dooley we've talked about a couple of times. Episode 89.
Insomnia.
Episode 179.
Hairspray.
And I'm guessing there's one I missed.
There is. He was in Death Wish.
Death Wish.
Episode
I knew
185.
there was another one that I glazed over.
Yeah, he's a regular for us.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
Billy D. Williams got to be the lost and found guy in Boston. And he's got a couple of minor scenes, but we actually did talk about him briefly in episode 123.
I didn't catch that.
Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay, yes.
We did too. How about that?
Star Wars.
Fuck, I can't believe I missed that.
I think it was because it was an overall discussion, and it wasn't. I was trying to think of a specific film.
Well, we were trying to compare it to.
Yeah, it was.
It's one of those requested episodes.
Yeah.
Well, you compared, the other one. So how about you do Empire and Last
Yeah.
Jedi? And I'm like, all right. So
Yes.
we'll probably do it on the
That's
next
it.
one as well.
If there's enough there to warrant a comparison.
I don't know. You guys will probably the audience will want to hear it
Yeah.
anyway. But I think they kind of blew their wad on remake material they could steal in the last one.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there's not too much left, and that's like using Ewoks.
Yeah. I don't think the Ewoks will come back.
Well, they can use them as something else. Maybe they'll be like frog people or something.
They did that in the episode 1 though, so.
Yeah, they did. And they gave them really offensive accents.
True. That is true. Did you guys catch the real life moment in the movie where Jack Lemmon almost died?
No, but
I caught it right away. It was like, oh, that didn't go to plan.
was that the scene where
The manhole cover blows?
Yeah.
And that was
Oh, yeah.
my favorite scene.
It was
Actually-
just supposed to pop up, and it.
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh, and it almost landed on him, yeah.
yeah, it almost.
That was
It was
frightening.
just centimeters away from his head, and it did clip him in the leg when it came down. Those fuckers are heavy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can just imagine, and he stayed in character despite being in pain.
Wow. Okay, yeah, because I remember thinking, like, that's a dodgy stunt. I didn't...
Because the way that landed, I'm like, that landed heavy. I'm like, that didn't look like a gimmicked manhole cover.
No.
No, it did not. No.
So imagine the fucking pressure to make it go up like that.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
some
Like, it went
special
out of
effects guy messed up.
Oh yeah, it went out of camera shot.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Knowing that he was almost fatally injured, I feel a little less good about enjoying that scene as much as I did. Because that was my favorite scene with George.
Well, I'm glad it pays off
Yeah.
because he stayed in character and they kept it in.
Yeah.
I'm guessing never needed to reshoot
No.
that
Yeah.
fucking thing.
Yeah.
Oh, if I was Jack Lemmon, I'm like, we are not reshooting it.
Yeah.
This is
If
what
it
you
works,
get.
it works. If not, you're cutting it out.
Yep.
I don't know who did that, but I will throw them down the manhole.
So yeah, this movie really is just a manic exercise in frustration watching these characters go from one self-inflicted thing to another. If it's just
Yeah.
use common sense and slow down, the movie wouldn't exist, but
Yeah.
it would have been 5 minutes. I laid over in Boston and I got to my hotel.
Yeah.
But instead, got to race that interview. So, okay, we're stuck in Boston. And that's, if there's even a slightest problem, he starts writing people's name down on
Oh,
the
Yeah,
as
I'm
somebody
gonna
who
sue
works
you
in
and
customer
sue you
service,
and
and I'm
sue
sure you
you.
feel the same way, when you see somebody behave like that, you just want to tell them to fuck off.
Yes.
And in my early days, I used to.
Yep.
I'm a little more patient these
Yeah.
days.
But, but you want to.
Oh, in the olden days, I had somebody who was very, very rude to me on the phone. And I'm like, you do realize this is a phone and I can hang up on you. He's like, how dare you? Click. And I called back. And he's like, you hung up on me. Yes, it is a phone and you were being very, very rude and using inappropriate language. He's like, well, how dare... Click. And then he called back again. And he's like, okay, so
Point
I'm very
taken.
upset about something. I'm like, very good. Now we can get somewhere.
That was part of what was so unlikable is his willingness and eagerness to blame other people.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was not accountable for anything that he said or did. Even at the end of the movie, I didn't get that from him. It's like,
Yeah, he rushed the bags through, which didn't make sure the claims were made properly.
Yeah.
Right away, he was making mistakes. they didn't
Absolutely.
eat on the plane because of him. They get laid over and after circling
For like 2 hours.
For 2 hours because
Yeah.
the planes were piled up, which happens.
Yeah.
And then they're forced to go to Boston. Man, it just gets worse, and he's yelling at other people and always taking names, and everybody's being very polite
Yeah.
to him and trying to help him,
Yeah.
and he's not listening.
Yeah. Doesn't
No.
take a moment, and doesn't take a moment to just breathe and be like, okay, just calm down for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
hate to use
surprised there
this-
wasn't a medical emergency with Gwen, because I never did see her get to go to the washroom.
No, right? No, yeah, for them to get something to eat too. And I hate to use this term, but George is really a classic example of toxic masculinity.
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of a catchphrase right now, but he is evidence of it.
Yeah, like it's sort of his way or the highway. And like he thinks, well, it's the weird thing. He thinks he's like this big shot. Like, look at all these people who are all around you who are in the same freaking position.
No, he's a
You're
small
not
man
the
who
most
likes to act
important-
big.
Yeah, you're not the most important person in the world. And sorry, you just aren't.
He is applying for a big position in an advertising firm, and it's like a vice president position. It's a big deal.
Yeah, but he doesn't have it yet.
No, he doesn't have it. It's double the money, big salary, and lots of perks. And he did wind up getting it, but after 3 other trials, would you want to go back to New York?
Yeah, would you
This
want to
is
live
like
there or
that
no?
Simpsons episode where, and I'm sure
Yes.
that's what that Simpsons episode is completely based on this. And oddly enough, having watched that Simpson episode based on this play, the Simpsons did it better.
All right, New York, I'm coming back, but you're not getting this.
Dad, our baby pictures were in there.
Don't you start.
I hate to
Yes.
steal a line from South Park, but the Simpsons did it better.
They really did. They really did. It was such a simple concept, and like the Simpsons knew how to do it. They knew how to make you care. They knew how to make you give a crap. Even
they
though,
didn't
even though
have
Homer went out of
an
his
hour
mind.
and 40 minutes to do it either, which
No.
I think that's a key thing. Is this movie is probably about 20 minutes at least too long.
But Homer's the same character. Everything that's happening to him is his own damn fault
Yeah.
Yep.
in that episode.
As usual.
Granted, he's not hauling around his wife and his kids in that episode. They're off having fun and experiencing the right
Which makes it
Yeah.
funnier.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there. Oh, and that was it. The clam juice versus Fresca. That
Yeah.
was a great joke.
Yeah. It's interesting to actually, if you're paying attention on that flyover, you can see the Twin Towers are just being built
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah, it was very
In
poignant.
fact, all three of these, the Twin Towers would have been there in one form or another.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gives you some thought.
No,
Yeah.
well, we just passed September 11th, so
Yeah,
Timely reference.
yeah.
It's-
Poignant, but timely.
I don't know. It's I don't know. Like it's weird. He'll yeah. Like he just wants to sue everybody. I'm like, how are you going to do it? Like, and the thing is, he's like, I don't care if I'm in court all year. Well, if you're in court all year, you'll lose your job. So maybe think that through.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're going to get out of it. Any judge with any kind of sense would just throw it out, so.
Yeah, the judge would be like, you should have called.
Yes.
You got to Boston and tried to race to New York without calling your hotel ahead who gave away your room.
Yes. When it clearly noted that hold till 11, right? Like, there's all these things where he didn't read the fine print, and it cost him. As somebody who's been guilty of that myself, but I didn't hold anybody else responsible for my own failing. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I failed to read the fine print. It's my fault.
Which is the grown-ups way of dealing
Yes.
with this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you realize that, their mistakes get made. At least if you own the mistakes. I think if he owned several of these mistakes, his journey would have been a lot easier.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like Billy D. Williams. He wasn't the guy who lost your bags. He's helping you try to find the bags.
Absolutely.
So don't blame the guy at the other end who had never once touched your bags.
It's a syndrome that happens all too often, is you blame the person in front of you as a representative of whoever failed you. Or whoever you believe failed you, I should say.
Every time I have an issue, I mean, in business, I'm dealing with distributors and things like that. And if something goes wrong, I'm always nice to the person on the other side of the phone because I know they didn't pack
Yeah.
those boxes. I know they're not responsible. They're only there to help me out. So I try to be as nice and jovial as possible. And I'm like, and you go give those other guys who packed my boxes a finger wag. You know?
And I sometimes go where it's like going, I know it's not your fault. I know it is there. But could you please put someone on the line who gets paid enough for me to yell at them? Because I'm like, I know you're not getting paid enough for me to yell at you. But I know somebody is there who will get paid enough to me to yell at them. And I know they also aren't personally responsible, but I also know that they're the ones who can be a pain in the ass. They're getting paid more, and they can fix it.
I'll be honest, there are certain telemarketers who do get my rage, but...
Oh, if you call me, that's a different story.
Yeah, you call me and I'm not dealing any kind of business with you, and usually they guarantee I won't.
Yeah.
Yelp, I'm talking to you.
Or random phone numbers that call me all the time and never leave a message. Like, just...
We're speaking to everybody who's listening.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
everybody's had this.
2 or 3 times a day?
I've had a few of those. I've been getting a lot of phone calls where the message is left, but it's in Chinese.
Oh,
I've gotten a few of those lately too. It's a little weird, but we do have a big Asian population within Calgary, so
It wasn't for me. I just take it as like that message wasn't for me.
it wasn't for me. But usually you can tell it's a robot, and I kind of want to hang on and record it just so I could translate it and find out what the hell they're talking about. Those are the more interesting ones.
It would be funny if it was just mundane. Are you happy with your long distance provider?
And that's kind of this movie. I mean, there's a lot of mundane. They get mugged, and twice.
Yes.
Oh my God, how terrible.
Once while he's sleeping.
Yes, once while he's sleeping. But it's hard to say what the man's... Because they were sleeping in Central Park in the 70s.
Yeah,
1970.
Yeah.
I mean, Central Park doesn't have the best reputation, but especially in the 1970s.
Oh my God. The fact that they survived the night, they should be grateful.
Yeah, so, here's this dude who she thinks had a knife, just hands George's
the last thing of value they have left,
to this guy, and then he goes off, and who knows? I mean, they kept him in shadow. We never really saw much, but it did have a very Jack the Ripper vibe to it.
It was a very menacing feel about him, for sure.
Yeah.
And then there's the scene when they wake up where he starts going through the kids' pockets, the little Spanish kids' pockets.
Oh,
horribly uncomfortable.
God. That was... Wow, I couldn't believe that was actually still in the movie. I mean, this was... talk about cringe. That's not... I don't know what
there was nothing funny about that at all.
No, I don't know what they thought was going to... They were going to get out of that. I mean, there's this crying child on a bench. Gwen goes to comfort him and refuses to leave him. This is... Her compassion's really starting to show at this point, and her standing up to George a little bit, and George is like... Because he can't speak English. George is like, you think he's got any money? So you're going to mug a child. And, think about an adult man going through a child's pockets. He goes into the bushes
to do it
because he's out in the open, and then, of course, somebody on the other side of the bushes sees that happening.
And it would have made more sense to do it in public, saying, I'm just looking to see if there's anything to identify him, whatever, and then then fine, right? But the way that they presented it was just horribly uncomfortable. The only reason it existed was to set up the scene where they get chased by the horse. Right? That's the only reason it existed. And they did a great job of changing that around to where...
But we shouldn't... He wasn't just chased by a horse. It was a mounted policeman.
Yes.
Because, there aren't just random horses walking around Central Park. That I'm aware of.
Wouldn't that be awesome if they just had horses patrolling Central Park, like these smart horses who are just police?
Makes me wonder. There are at our University of Calgary here, there is a herd of deer on the campus, unless they've been relocated recently. But when I used to work there, makes you wonder, like, deer on campus. How smart are you?
The deer are saying they're going.
There's a movie there, Deer on Campus.
Yes, Deer on Campus.
We're getting an education.
They're like, how is it economics today? Oh man.
Because I was passing right by them, they were not startled by students at all. Some were going to go up to them. I'm like, they're still deer.
Yeah.
You'll regret that when they gore you or kick you in the nuts.
Yes.
They can really mess you up.
They can mess you up.
They look pretty. Nope.
I'm like, I was close enough. I could take some pictures or whatever, but I'm like, I'm not going to get that close.
No. If they approach you, that's one thing, but don't approach them.
Yeah. Always be respectful of nature.
Kind of like sharks. If they want to get a closer look at you, they'll get a closer look at you.
There you go. That's when you start to worry, because you start to look delicious.
No, you just look
Steak.
weird. Fleshy fish.
Okay, what are some other moments here we can talk about? A lot of the dialogue was actually did get recycled in the remake, though.
It did, but it fit better.
Yeah, they fit better. It just there's certain points in where you could tell it was almost like a snap. Okay, here's the dialogue verbatim, and then they'll snap back into their own script.
It's like they picked the parts of the dialogue they wanted from the original movie, and then built the rest of the movie around that dialogue.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have to say, in the remake, the desperation to get to the interview seems more real to me, considering he doesn't have a job.
Yes.
Yes, that's one of the secrets he is keeping from Gwen is he's been fired.
Mm-hmm.
So they still need an income. And that's one of the secrets. The other was that Gwen knew that the daughter was fucking up their credit line.
Yeah, she'd given her permission. She'd given her the credit cards to buy furniture for a new apartment.
Yeah.
Because
I love that apartment.
Oh, because she quit medical school and because she wasn't a student, she couldn't live in the dorms.
Yes. Yeah. And Dad didn't know that
and
she quit
went.
yet.
Yeah, she went into acting, and what an interesting apartment she lived in. Those guys across from her were real assholes, though. Like,
yes.
Gwen was just going to write a note on a piece of paper, and they literally wanted to call the cops on her for
the newspaper.
Granted, she did kind of tailgate into the building without a key, so that it's a stranger they don't know, right? So a little bit I get, but it was a kind of extreme.
There was a lot of aggression there.
The dominatrix neighbor, though,
I liked her.
Yeah, she was kind of awesome. She looks like a good time,
and she knew her daughter. She's like, you know, Susan. She's like, oh yeah, good kid.
Apparently, everybody in the apartment was afraid of that dude with the dog, though.
Yes.
Oh my god, that big dog! Like, what was the deal?
I don't know, but he just let it loose.
Yes,
because he was nowhere to be seen. He just let it loose and let it chase them.
Yeah, which made for a funny scene.
That dude should be on the list.
Yes,
he should really be on the list.
You just made the list!
But I have to admit, you know, Nancy can really grab she can catch a pass.
Yeah. It's great. After she catches, nice hands, honey, nice hands.
Yeah. They're like, it's all about the food, and then the dog's like, okay, I'm done, and then just keeps going.
I'm glad, the situational stuff wasn't exactly the same. There was certainly some. Mm-hmm. There was, the not eating on the airplane, getting diverted to Boston, and missing the train.
Although they actually did miss it this time.
Yeah, they missed it. It's like, why is there nobody on this train? Oh, because the one you're looking for is right there.
Yeah.
And in the original film, they hop a cab and try to get ahead of it, which doesn't make a lot of logical sense to me because even in our trains, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, they explained it in the original quite well, is that there's a mail pickup at another station on the way out of town.
There's like a long layover at that station where they can catch it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They barely make it in there, and then there's a lineup for the food car, and then the food car, by the time they get into it, is out of everything.
Yes, and it's funny because one thing I did notice was they made a nice little throwback to that scene with when Henry kisses Nancy, he can taste peanut butter on her. Yeah. On her, right? Mm-hmm. And in the original, he can't have a sandwich because it's peanut butter on white bread, neither of which he can eat.
Right.
But why did he go to the vending machine and get that peanut butter snack? That I didn't quite get. Because there's a small moment where Steve Martin gets his change
Steve Martin,
out.
Yeah, because his character can have peanut butter.
Yeah, no, they were different characters. You're just getting them mixed up. Right?
Yeah, no, but I know he does. But he does get peanut butter in the new one. But makes a big deal about her having peanut butter.
Yeah,
so
because
that's what
she
I didn't quite get.
She found she used her change and got two things out of a vending machine
and ate them both.
Now I get it. Okay, I couldn't figure out why it was mad unless he was allergic.
Because that would keep them going for hours.
Yes.
Peanut butter's got protein and fat. It's a good thing.
Yeah, but one little candy.
That's not going to do it.
No. You won't even get the sugar
Can we talk
rush.
about Nancy's larceny?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
She's amazing. I love her.
She's got some darkness in her.
Yes, she does.
I love her character.
She's a survivor, right? And she's an opportunist as well.
Oh, yeah. When she starts seducing that dude in the bar just so they can get to his hotel room.
So they can order food and get cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah.
Mark McKinney was the guy.
And then she steals money from the obnoxious rich people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And their mints.
And
then she blackmails John Cleese.
Oh, I love that bit.
But I love when she says...
Although I was surprised when they were at the Sexaholics Anonymous thing, the meeting in the church, and they were like, yeah, we came here to pray. It was a variation on their other church thing in the original film, which was far less interesting. They were shooting some...
an Easter service or something like that.
Yeah, they were filming it, and so there was actually no people allowed until afterwards. But in this one, they were having an actual meeting to help people with sex addiction, which was pretty funny, actually. But when they were running out, why didn't they grab some of the food on the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
That just baffled me. I'm like, well, what? Grab a croissant or something on the way out.
Exactly. Oh, it was so funny. And then the next scene is like going, I find failure very erotic. Also success. Also everything else.
But that's a big moment, too, because that's where a lot of the things that have been hidden come to light as well.
Yeah.
So it actually does help them.
It moves the story forward, for sure. That scene serves a purpose, other than just, oh, look, another moment of frustration for them.
Well, I was wondered, like, if you're worried about being there, you could just say, it's like, ooh, I thought this was an AA meeting, and then just take off from there.
Yes, and to come up with, oh, your problem is lack of sex in a sex addiction meeting. This is everything they want.
Tell us how you do it,
We want
Joe.
less sex.
What's your secret, Henry?
They could. I think they actually didn't play it up enough.
They should have.
Yeah.
Tell us how you don't want it.
And it leads into one of the funnier scenes in the movie. It's cringy. I'll admit, it was really cringy, and you saw it coming a mile away. But with Mayor Giuliani's announcing the light up New York City thing, and they're
having sex outside their what was that name of that restaurant?
Tavern on the Green.
Yeah, Tavern
on the Green.
Yeah, that one you could see coming. I'm like going, oh no.
Yeah, but again, this fed into that running away from the mounted policeman on the horse thing.
Yeah,
right.
But it also fed into the fact too that's like it's sort of where they kind of like reconnect, and then they're kind of more partners in crime at the end.
Yeah. Well, and it leads into a really wonderful scene at the end where he gets to make his big sort of speech about that gets him the job, right? Where he talks about falling in love with his wife all over again at the Tavern on the Green. On the Green.
Yes.
I will say I think I like the original ending better than this one.
It's more touching, but the way the movie's set up, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but let's do the 1999 trailer here.
So I guess this is it.
Give your mother a big hug. She's very fragile today.
Daddy's a wreck, okay? So make sure you call him.
After 24 years of marriage, Henry and Nancy Clark were finally on their own.
This is fantastic. Alone in the house.
It was the perfect time for a change.
Have you tried tying each other up with bamboo?
No, actually, we used the club. Oh, the time.
To leave the Midwest for a little visit to Manhattan.
Great city, isn't it?
New York is completely fogged in. We've been diverted to Boston.
Where are the bags?
They didn't come out.
Are there any more bags up there? We were supposed to land up.
That's not our bag!
Oh!
But now that they're going...
Is this a 338 to New York?
No, that is.
They're going to regret it.
We've got to find a car.
Compact, midsize, or luxury? Compact. We're all out of compacts.
Midsize would be fine.
We don't have any midsize vehicles either. All we have is one luxury sedan.
You know, honey, they should really change their sign to, we have car.
This spring...
We have arrived!
This is beautiful.
There's nothing more inviting.
You seem to have a little financial problem with your credit card. Please come back when you have some money.
Can't you just trust us?
More exciting.
You might think we're insignificant out-of-towners from Ohio, but I happen to know what our rights are. Hold it.
Or more arresting.
This can't be happening. We're taking acid.
Then a little trip.
I know that you took a hallucinogenic in prison.
This is the dawning of the age.
We need to love more and learn to love because it's... Henry! Come on, Nancy, let's do her!
Paramount Pictures presents...
Oh, Henry!
Steve Martin, Goldie Hawn, and John Cleese.
Oh my God! He's dancing in ladies' clothes.
The Out-of-Towners.
We're back.
Mr. and Mrs. Clark, the sequel.
Are you throwing us out?
Good heavens, no. Security will do that.
That trailer watches much better.
Yes, it does. It's a more fun watch. Right? Just because the humor is really on point in terms of taking the situation and just adding that one bit of dialogue that moves it from uncomfortable to funny.
Ish. I still don't think this movie is funny.
But you hate comedies.
Yeah, you're not the biggest comedy guy.
I am not the biggest comedy, especially cringe comedy, and it still is.
It still is, yes.
And I've never been the biggest Steve Martin fan in general. But, this one I at least... I
better.
I had to spread it out, and normally I'll try to knock these out in a couple of days, and then I'm like, I got to take a day off because I still had PTSD from the first one.
Oh my god!
And I was like really dreading going into the second one, and it turned out to be not that bad. I really enjoyed John Cleese in this movie,
and I enjoyed Steve Martin, and I mean,
I actually did more, more than I thought I would, but it was nice to see some chemistry happening in this movie. There was still chemistry in the last one, but I think it works better.
It works better here. It's funny as you talk about Steve Martin, and he's one of those actors like me. For me, like Michael Douglas is like, Steve Martin. And then I watch a movie, I'm like, you know what? I really enjoyed him in this. Why don't I like Steve Martin?
Who doesn't like Michael Douglas?
It depends on the movie. There's some I don't like him in.
I don't know if there's some sort of trauma there, but there's because you know what I think it is the very first movie I remember seeing him in is Fatal Attraction.
There you go.
And his character is really unlikable in that. And I think that's sort of transferred over to him, even though I love the Romancing the Stone movies. I love Falling Down. I like all his movies.
Black Rain,
another one. But yeah, and Steve Martin somewhere in there must have been some sort of trauma there.
I have the same problem with Jeff Bridges. With The Vanishing, and he played such a creepy character. I always think of that when I see him. Can't get away.
All right, well, this movie, the screenplay was adapted by Mark Lawrence, who wrote the Miss Congeniality movies, which I actually do like.
They're fun.
I do like those movies. Budgeted at $75 million, and it's grossed.
Oh, no.
Guesses?
32?
I was going to go 33, but...
it's a little high.
Really?
15?
12?
$28.5 million in the U.S. for domestic box office. So
Price is Right rules, we both missed it.
Yeah. I'm guessing a lot of this money went to the cast because that's a big budget for this movie. Directed by Sam Weisman, who directed D2, The Mighty Ducks, and George of the Jungle.
Ooh.
Yeah, so there's a pedigree for you.
Yeah.
That'll tell you.
You can see why it didn't work. Not the best track record. Steve Martin played Henry Clark, and we talked about him in episode 13.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I think we mentioned that
already. Episode 55.
Which was Little Shop of Horrors.
Correct. Yes. We've never actually talked about Goldie Hawn before. Recently
we will,
though. Yeah, we will, because they recently remade Overboard. And
they're remaking Private Benjamin, too.
Oh,
really?
So we'll definitely be talking about her again, and you can see her. I think the most recent thing was Christmas Chronicles with her husband on Netflix.
Nice.
Where she played Mrs. Claus. John Cleese as the hotel manager, Mr. Mosol. Basically, this was his Fawlty Towers character.
Absolutely.
And that's what I adored.
But much snootier.
Yeah, with a little bit of Monty Python.
Yeah, with the cross-dressing, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a nice blend of characters in there, but it's that familiarity that kind of made him fun as well.
Yes.
And just his amazing presence every time he's on a screen.
Yeah, Mark McKinney was Greg, as we talked about. He's the dude, the rich dude that she seduces. More famous in Canada from Kids in the Hall.
Yes.
Yep.
And Oliver Hudson was their son, Alan Clark, the real-life son of Goldie Hawn. And believe it or not, we have talked about him before. Episode 66, Black Christmas.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't. You know what? I don't even know if I looked at his filmography.
And I did mention Tom Reese-Farrell as Andrew Lloyd Webber, and of course the beloved former mayor of New York,
Rudy Giuliani.
now a lawyer for Donald Trump. Everybody loves this guy, right?
No.
The tomatoes are literally flying from New York into Canada as we speak and plummeting on my house. We know his reputation.
Yeah.
I'm just fucking with you.
I know, but I'm doing the tomato sound.
There you go. You do it pretty good.
Thank you.
If there was anything, this would be a good time for that too confining thing.
Yes. Too confining. Yes, I love that bit. That whole section there where he's high is freaking hilarious because it's old form Steve Martin.
Yeah, he's uptight when he gets arrested for public urination. Thank God it was like that instead of something else.
Yes.
And that's a more reasonable thing. Like, you've been sleeping in the park all night. You're going to wake up, you got to pee. Like, first thing in the morning is usually you go pee.
Yeah. So he gets arrested, and some dude in the jail just like,
You need an aspirin.
You need an aspirin, and it's a freaking hallucinogen, which he probably would not have had on him if he'd just been arrested.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it didn't make a lot of sense, but okay.
It's a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even if you're from Ohio, you should know that somebody gives you something in jail, it's probably not just an aspirin.
Yeah.
Most likely. Yes. But it led to some fun stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, right down to that walk from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels where he's kind of hunched over and...
He tries to grab the butt of the doorman.
Yes.
And there's this one lady who's like, no, honey. She's like, let's do her, honey.
Let's do her. Oh, he was quacking when he went into the hotel.
Yes.
He makes John Cleese look uncomfortable, which is hilarious.
I actually love how Nancy finally gets John Cleese on their side. Like,
yes.
John Cleese is like, well, come back when you have some money. You know, it wasn't a case of that they had their bag stolen, but they didn't. Most of their money had already been stolen by Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
And their credit card was no good.
So he's like, you can't have the room then. Which, okay, I get. He was cold. He was one of these guys. He'll be your cuck if you're paying.
Well, I don't know if he'll be your cuck. He'll be your toady. He'll be your lapdog.
He does have a limit, though. He will be your lapdog. He's self-professed weasel.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there was, when Greg's yelling in his face, he just kind of does the Three Stooges.
Pokes him in the eye.
Yeah.
Bugger off.
Yeah.
It was nice to see he had a limit.
Yeah. But I like how Nancy's the one who gets shit done. She's had spotted him dancing around in women's clothing.
But it was like a sable and heels, which is kind of fascinating because, like, the cross-dressing thing, it was easily to blackmail him maybe in 1999. But nowadays, I don't think it would raise that much of an eyebrow.
It's not the cross-dressing thing. It was the fact that he'd broken into a guest room.
Guest room, yeah.
And was wearing her clothes.
Yeah, no, it was because, it was that he'd eyed the shoes when they'd come in. And
you saw it coming.
Yeah, you saw it coming.
If you know John Cleese, you knew what was coming just based on that one little bit.
Yeah, so, he's breaking into customers' rooms to steal their clothes, to dance around in them.
So now I know if I ever go into a hotel and my shoes aren't fitting quite right.
John Cleese was probably there.
John Cleese was probably there trying my shoes. Because you're like, why are these so wide? These are stretched out.
What do they call him? The really mean transvestite hotel guy?
Yes.
But, at that point, that was like, okay, that's how she gets him bailed out of jail.
Yep.
And a room and a limo.
A limo just in time to kind of get him cleaned up.
President's suite.
Yeah.
No less.
Oh, yeah, he took it seriously.
Yeah.
And he's actually trying, because they have like a breakup moment in the film when he goes to the interview and she's just going to go back to Ohio.
Because he's given up. Yeah, he's like, well, I've missed my interview. I'm never getting the job now.
And she's all about the adventure.
Yeah. Yes. She's by far the more adventurous of them. And she even says so. She wants to suck the marrow out of life. Right? And
she wants to go places and stuff. And he just wants to fix things at home
and read a book. Read books,
read a book.
Yeah.
And she was like, what's weird is like the most heartbreaking moment was like, we're too old for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what a gut punch, because she's not done yet. And he's just given up.
And she's seeing this as a second opportunity because they now don't have the kids. They have the freedom to do the things they want. And he's just not seeing that. I don't know if maybe they didn't cover it particularly well, but I don't know if it's because he doesn't have a job. He doesn't know how they're going to do that. Right? But or if he just feels that they're that old, like he's fallen into that rut. Right? There's that great bit of dialogue about ruts. You're in a rut and I'm in a rut, but we're not in a rut. Right? And we just need to get out of those ruts. And that's what this whole movie's about, is them getting out of their own personal ruts so they can get on the same path together.
Yeah, and one of those final kick in the balls, too. He's there right on time. And then he didn't get the message that they moved it up an hour early.
Yeah.
So he's an hour late for the interview. and they didn't even want to do it. He managed to get a kind of interview, and they were going to turn him down because they were like trying to come up with a new slogan for New York. And he's like, well, the problem is you guys are in it. You guys have lived here. You can't see.
You're jaded,
You're jaded. And he kind of takes his experiences, and it's like only in New York. He takes these negative experiences, but turns into a positive. Like, look at this adventure. I climbed up my hotel.
I climbed up to the top of a building on the outside.
Without using the elevator.
And he comes up only in New York. And then they're like, holy shit, this guy's a genius because he just came up with that on the fly. So next thing you know, he gets hired, and this time they stay because in the previous one, they're like...
New York has beaten them.
New York has beaten them. We want to live in the rest of our lives in Ohio. And there's a great speech by Sandy in that movie, Sandy Dennis in that movie, and right at the end that I'll run at the end of this episode. And it's really kind of sweet. Because, I mean, it is beaten. He's like, there you win. And they refuse to kind of let New York beat them. And they're going to stay, much to John Cleese's chagrin.
Yeah, I love that line where he's like, I think I'm beginning to like them.
Yeah, they wind up going to their daughter's play together with this hotel guy. So they did make friends with him.
At the end, she's like, are those my earrings? They get beaten by New York in the original, but they beat New York in the remake.
Yes.
So I kind of like where they kind of threw that adversity right at the final moment in the original movie, as much as I'm dislike the movie, that he refuses the job. It's like, this is not for us. This would never be our home. We'll never be comfortable here. But at the same time, and I probably would feel the same way if I had those experiences my first time to New York. But these guys are like, okay, bad couple of days, but we'll make it work. We've got a good job, and he got a job for his wife as well because he gets to hire his own team, and she showed skill in design. She used to be in advertising before she
used to be partners before she had the kids.
So they're going to go back and do something they did in their youth together before they had their kids.
And really be a partnership again. And I think that's also telling the way the different types of relationships in the two movies, right? Because in the original movie, George very much takes what he has for granted, everything that he has for granted, right? His wife, his kids, his relationship with his wife, the job that he already has. So he's taking that all for granted. And in the end, that final speech at the end shows that he's recognizing that he has been taking it for granted. Whereas in the remake, because he doesn't have a job, it kind of has to end that way because otherwise
they're forced in that position.
Yeah, they're forced in that position.
I mean,
but it still reinforces the relationship. And in this one, they've forgotten about their partnership and the fact that they are a team, and they're finally realizing that they're a team again. Right. So it works really well in both movies.
I don't know what their savings are going to be like because their credit card's been trounced and they had to pay for a luxury sedan that.
That the heat wouldn't turn off.
And then they crashed into a whole lot of fish.
Yeah. I kept the tally. The total cost for the two things that they gave us money on was $3,000.
Yeah, because it was $2,200 for the car.
And $800 for the couch that was on the credit card. But the problem is the payments hadn't been made, which is why the credit card was frozen.
Yeah. Well, and the whole time I kept saying there going like, wow, the car thing sort of bothered me because I'm like, ooh, a little bit incompetent because I'm like, there's a line there. It shows you're turning right. You don't need to listen to what it says. Just have George say, turn right.
And
come on, guys.
they did get thrown out of this hotel in the remake. They could have stayed in the hotel despite not having their room. They were offered up the manager's office just
at 7 a.m.
And then they could get a new room at 7 a.m. So,
easily could have.
There was lots of times where they could get out of this cycle of madness in that original film.
Yes.
And just never took it.
No, and that's one of the things they kind of did away with in the remake is when they got into a situation, there really was no way out of it. Except to move on to the next situation. Even when they went into Susan's apartment, she wasn't there, right?
Yeah, so that's what makes that first movie so frustrating is they can stop the cycle of madness if they just, use their heads
and take the time to make a right decision.
Yeah, and thank people for their help.
Yeah.
Like, they offered help all the time, and they're not taking it.
Absolutely.
Well, George isn't taking it.
Well, they'll take help from some random skeevy stranger who says, "Oh, I know of a place," and takes them outside. Like, he doesn't know when to accept help.
I didn't write down the address that he directed them to. Or like, oh, it's just down here, and he gives the address. In New York City, that address is the 17th precinct. It's an actual police station. So there's a bit of irony. They got mugged where actual police station would be instead of this alley that they got mugged in. But
can we talk about the ridiculous kidnapping?
Oh, sure. Twice. Both movies have it.
Yes, but it makes more sense in the remake than it did in the original one, because the crooks steal a fucking cop car.
Yeah, the cops are, again, trying to help them and take them to, what do they call it, the Armory or something?
Yes,
it was
the Armory, yeah.
Yeah, it was a place for tourists that are having difficulties and could get some help. And these cops are actually called to a real crime, and they're going to like, okay, we can't take you anymore, and you have to, and George is refusing to move, and the cops have to make a decision. They're like, all right, guess where we're going. It was a robbery at a gas station or something like
that. Yes, but yeah, the cops are the car, and the criminals run right in and steal the cop car with our hostages in the back.
Yeah.
Right.
At least with the remake with a taxi, you get it more.
Yeah, just like they'd stolen a taxi, and
I thought that was going to come into play more because it's a taxi cab, but it's a getaway car, and so after they've done the robbery and the crooks, I think it was just one holdup guy and then the getaway guy. So he hops in the front, and they've got the passengers in the back, and like, oh my god, who are these? And he holds the gun on these guys, and George manages to get it out of his hand because it's just New York, so they got those tiny little windows in the cab cars, and George at one point is touching it, so I actually thought that might come into play because I had watched the trailer, so I thought it might come into play of him maybe being implicated in the crime.
See, I thought
but it
he
never
was going to take it out of the car, and then because they needed money, he was going to mug somebody.
And I was actually waiting for that in both movies where they reached that point, that breaking point where they were going to rob somebody else. And I mean, to a certain extent, Nancy does do it in the remake where she robs the snooty rich people.
Yeah.
Right? But they deserved to be robbed. They were awful.
Oh, they were terrible.
They were really awful.
And they
I
probably
love that
didn't
she
even
stole their
notice.
mints.
Well, she stole, what was it? She didn't steal that much from
$20
them.
and their mints.
And their mints. And they're rich. They never would have noticed that $20 is missing. That's their change.
Don't steal from people.
Yeah. They would have noticed the mints, though. They absolutely would have noticed the mints because it wasn't perfect. Where were our mints? They would have blamed that on the hotel, right?
Yeah.
Which I think why she stole them was to get at John Cleese's character.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because she knew that those were the type of people they were.
When she goes into the bar, I think that was also a hint to like the train thing where she's taking all the little snacks.
Yes.
And just voraciously eating them.
And I love how she keeps getting to eat a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
But Henry never gets to eat.
Yeah.
We actually do see that effect on him a little bit more in the original.
Yeah.
That blood lowering of blood sugar and how crazy it actually, because I get hangry.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of that was part of that in that original film.
Yeah.
If you can explain it for being hangry.
Absolutely.
But I do like that she's sneaking it. It's like, oh, he wouldn't let me eat, but I'm going to fucking eat.
Yeah.
So she goes in the bar and just chowing down on the complimentary peanuts.
Well, that's the remake. They looked at the first one. They're like going, no, she's not. She didn't do it the right way. Like this lady knows what's up. She's like, he's never going to let me eat. I'm just going to sneak what I can because he thinks everything's going to be fine, and I know better.
Yeah. Well, and it was her idea to begin with. She's the one who saw, and you almost saw the glow around the bar. It's like, oh, there's food there, right? And she's the one who sort of maneuvers him into the bar. And then, for whatever reason, he goes to the bathroom when he's starving. One of the things that did bug me is like, okay,
and she never got to.
No. No, when did
we saw
these
Steve
women pee?
Martin pee twice?
Yeah, yeah, and I love I'm glad they got rid of the whole thing with the weak ankles and her breaking her heel because it just felt,
it just made it. Yeah, she came off really
made her come whiny for part of the movie,
and just she comes off dumb and useless.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
And it's not. And the worst part is like it's sort of part of it is when you talk about like the weak ankles and like, but she's wearing heels. Like the style of the time is she has to wear heels to like go anywhere and to do anything. It's the dumbest thing ever. Like it does wreck your ankles. It does wreck your feet. It does wreck everything. And if you lose a heel again, like your gait is off, you're fucked. Like it's not the poor woman has to wear it.
And I don't know why it didn't occur to either to break the heel off the other shoe.
Yeah. No, didn't do it.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, just break off the other heel. Especially considering the way that the end result is it became a flat. It became a ballet flat.
Like in Romancing the Stone. That's one of the things they do.
Yeah. Wow, way to throw back to something said earlier in the film, or in the episode.
Exactly.
Well done.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. But it's, and then the garbage, like, it's sort of funny. Like, you can see her realize as they go along, especially when she starts staring at the garbage. She's like, what have we done?
Yeah.
Where are we going? This place is horrible. I don't want to live here.
Yeah, there's you get that right at the beginning of the movie that she's already kind of determined this isn't where she wants to be.
The first time when I went to Vancouver to go to film school, and just entering in and coming down. Oh, what's that main drag?
Granville?
Not Granville. Hastings.
Hastings.
Oh, yes, Hastings.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and it is gross and awful, and I'm like, oh, have I made a mistake? That was the first thing that entered in my mind is like, my school is right on this god-awful road.
Yeah, and according to the myth, Hastings Street in Vancouver is the original Skid Row. Right? It used to actually run logs down it to the water, down where Hastings Street is now. So so that's one of the myths is it's the original Skid Row is either in Seattle or in Vancouver, and Hastings Street is the one that's supposedly the Vancouver version of Skid Row.
Right.
Yeah, it's also where serial killers get their victims.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty awful street.
Yeah.
Daytime and nighttime.
Yeah, no, it's thankfully there's gentrification where I was, but there was still.
You were right across the street from Needle Park, though.
I was. I was, yes.
You can infer what that name means pretty easily, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't actually called Needle Park.
Needle Park. Oh, so it had to do with like record players?
You go with that, Trish.
Okay.
You go with that.
So there's all these record players at Needle Park, and you drop the needle.
That would have been a lot more interesting.
Yes, but no.
Oh, okay. There was sewing there?
They were longer.
Okay.
Yeah, they were longer. So, Needle Park, not...
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of me going to school and going straight to home. I didn't want to explore up there, but Gastown was up there, which is nice. It's great because it's so weird because Gastown's beautiful.
Gastown's very close,
right behind Hastings.
Oh,
it's like a block off, two blocks off.
When there was the Yuck Yucks that was like down in there, like I remember going there, and you'd have to go past Hastings to get into the gate at the Yuck Yucks. That was a little bit dodgy at night.
Yeah, so we do have places like that.
Yeah, so I kind of get that whole, like, arriving into town and wanting to turn right the fuck around.
Back to Rat.
Yeah.
Or, like, a few setbacks, and you're like, I just want to go home. Because, like, I've had those trips where stuff just started kind of going wrong. And I have bailed on trips before where I'm like, I think I just need to go home early. I'm hemorrhaging money because I've made some bad decisions.
Yeah. I think everybody's had one of those trips where it just didn't go right. Like, I've had those too.
Yeah, we all have, I think. Yeah. Again, it comes down to making choices and decisions that are good in the end. George never makes those. Not once in this movie, except for the very end.
Yeah, when he's like, I told them no. Yeah. He actually got offered a great position, vice president, and all bells and whistles, and he turns it down so he can go home to be with his wife. And he had it, but he had a job.
Yeah, he had a job to go back to.
Yeah. So that desperation that's in the remake is missing.
Yeah,
right.
There's initial resistance from Goldie Hawn at the beginning of the film as well, because he's going to go on this trip. She was undecided whether she was going to go or not, and then decides at the last minute, and he's not super thrilled that she's on the plane with him.
Because he wanted to keep it a secret until he got the job.
Yeah.
And it's really, the whole part of it, like, just getting into that movie is her taking that step to go with him. Like, she was just adrift. Like, she used to work with him. They used to work together. She used to have a lot of stuff she had on the go.
And then she was a full-time mom.
And now her kids are gone, and she's like, just what do I do now? Yeah. And that's what happens with a lot of women. They have their kids and sort of out of the game for so long, and getting back in is hard once your kids are grown because you're a little bit older.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's very true. I think in the remake, the cringiest scene in the whole movie is on the plane for me.
Yes.
right, where she's sitting a few rows behind him, and she's like, "Here's your rash medication, and here's your foot jellies." That was just, I don't know what they were thinking there, because they do so well with creating a better comedy. Except for that, it just felt
the entire
way out of
plane
place.
scene is bad too. Like her getting on the plane and knocking things over. I'm like, that was kind of pointless.
Yeah, there were like more that pratfall type of humor, but I mean, Steve Martin's good at it. And
so is Goldie Hawn usually.
And I was about to say, Goldie Hawn was also pretty good at it. I mean, she had a nice long stint as a regular on Laugh-In, so it's not like she doesn't have comedy chops.
It's just it seemed silly there and just unnecessary.
Yeah, it is. It's embarrassment humor is the worst. Like, as much as I liked watching Frasier on television, that was the worst show because it was always that type of humor. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, God, I don't hide under a blanket for horror movies.
Yes.
But I will for that kind of humor. It's like, I just can't bear to watch somebody being embarrassed.
It makes you really uncomfortable.
It does.
I feel bad for the person.
Yes.
I'm not laughing.
Yeah. No. Even though she doesn't feel bad at all. She's completely unashamed.
Yeah. No, this is just normal for her.
Yeah.
She's so cool.
And she's trying to, she's taking that motherly aspect and transferring it over to her husband.
Yeah. But it's clumsy. Yeah. And they're also trying to take something from Gwen and from the original one is sort of that sort of goofy innocence that she has at the beginning of the movie. But they kind of amped it up so to the point where it becomes parody.
But then at a certain point, then you get to see that dark side of her. And oh, man.
I love when Steve Martin is like, who are you?
Yes, I love that.
Like, we just have to climb down this sign to that balcony.
Yeah. And I love that. I love the fact that she's leading the way more. She's making odd decisions, but they're the right decisions for them at the time. Right?
I mean, they often get them into more trouble, but
but they're already in trouble.
But these aren't offers for help. They rarely get that.
No. So I don't think they ever get it.
Yeah, I don't think they ever do get one. So this is a case of like bad situation into bad situation, but not something they could have gotten out of by just keeping a cool head, because everything that they got into in that first movie could have been avoided if they just slowed down and listened to people that were trying to help them.
And sometimes just stayed where they were.
Yeah.
Like, just stay where you are.
Just stay where you are. Yeah, that whole movie could have just, if you would have just stayed in Boston, taken the comp hotel room, and getting the morning flight out, if it was possible. Even when he gets to the interview in that original film, they're like, oh, we weren't even expecting you because of the bad weather and the transit strikes and stuff like that. It would have been fine. Like, people are understanding.
Yes.
Gwen says that consistently.
Yeah.
Just call them, and he won't do it. He's like, if you just call them.
He's incredibly stubborn.
Which is silly, because he didn't even know about the time change. Granted, I think they called his hotel to make that time change the hotel they weren't in.
Yes.
So he didn't even get his messages.
Yeah,
but that was funny. In the original movie, even though they weren't staying in the hotel, they still got their messages.
Yeah.
They still got their messages, which is very odd.
Well, because it was a different type of situation, right?
Yeah.
They weren't getting thrown out of it.
That's right. Yeah. They had given away his room because of a lack of communication.
Yeah, and that was again because George didn't call ahead saying we've been laid over and can you please hold our room?
Yeah, and it's interesting. The one thing that's really interesting, and it's actually something I didn't realize until just now, is in that 1970s movie, everybody in the customer service aspect of things are all very kind and trying very hard to be helpful and trying very hard to make things right. Whereas you don't see any of that in the 90s version. And that's kind of telling, right? Is where did our expectations change in terms of getting service?
Maybe there was just too many Georges out there and customer service got tired of it.
Possibly, yeah. Right? But I remember as somebody who's been in frontline customer service for a long time, is there was a point there where like sort of excellent customer service in the early 90s where like that superior customer service was a thing where you really wanted to be the best at your customer service and make sure that your customers were pleased with their experience. And then by about the mid 90s to the late 90s, it was the other way around. It's like the customer's never right. There was definitely that mentality there.
I think there was sort of a shift too, where there was a lot of people who were taking a lot of advantages.
Well, and that was the part of it.
And they were basically, it seemed like they were just ripping off companies. So the companies eventually said, well, I guess we just can't handle this anymore. we're going to lose money if we just keep being this awesome.
There's that whole expectation versus reality thing, right? Once you start giving good service or good product, is people always expect it, and they expect the next level of it as well. At some point you reach a peak where it's like, well, I can't give that kind of service anymore, right? It's not cost effective. My staff can't handle that kind of that just can't.
We can't give everything away for free.
Yeah. And if you're dealing with somebody like George, who you're trying to help and isn't taking it, do you want this guy there? No, I wouldn't.
No, and that's the other thing too.
I'm sorry about your situation, and then move on to the next guy that I can help.
Yeah, well, how many times I've been in like customer service industries, like, I'm never going to come here again. I'm like, do I have a guarantee? Will you sign a contract? I mean, that's what I'll do. I will give you something if you will sign a piece of paper saying you will never come back.
Yeah, and generally anybody who's ever pulled that the customer's always right bullshit with me in my store, it's because they're looking for some sort of deal out of me, and I'm like, well, that was the wrong way to go about it.
Exactly.
I've literally had people being mean to me trying to sell me stuff. I'm like, well, why would I spend money buying your shit if you're being an asshole? I've literally pushed like some really nice comics back to people because they're being dicks to me.
Exactly.
And they're like, whoa, what are you doing? I'm like, you need to change your tune if you want me to look at this stuff. I'm not your bitch.
No, I've had it too. I remember one of my all-time favorite stories as a manager was I was managing a video store, and a lady threw her card at me and says, I don't think I want to be renter anymore. She says, well, we don't want you as a customer.
Yep.
Right? In front of 40 other people because it was a Friday night and it was busy as shit. Right? There's applause.
Nice.
And it's satisfying when people recognize that you've done everything you can to help somebody and they're still not accepting of it. But I didn't mean to get us off onto this tangent, but it is an interesting juxtaposition. Right?
Oh, it's true. And like as a customer, sometimes when I see somebody in the customer service industry who's hit the end of their rope because of a realistic reason, like this person, there's no satisfying them, so why even try? And then they do that thing, like, I don't think I want you as a customer. I will applaud because I'm like, the customer isn't always right. People have learned to behave appallingly to people in customer service roles, and that's gotta stop.
Yeah. Well,
it just comes to mutual respect. It's like
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Don't there's no need to shit on especially in the situation of this movie. There's like, okay, that guy who's trying to help you with your bags, he's not the guy who lost your bags. Don't shit on him.
And
the person who's trying to get you a car, it's not their fault that all the cars are rented, etc. Like, just chill. It's like, okay, listen to the alternatives and whatnot. Although I do like how Gwen or Nancy in this movie, the remake, would kind of squeeze Steve Martin a little bit when you could tell he's going to go off in a little asshole moment, and then he'd be like, oh, hey, look, honey, we have cars. They should say we have car. This cheesy grin and just trying to hold it in. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit better. He's like, you can tell he's frustrated, but at least he's not shitting on this person.
And she's there as sort of as his Jiminy Cricket, right?
Yeah.
Where they're sort of guide him in the right direction. And that pays off at the end of the movie when she leaves. She's done. She's frustrated. She can't handle it anymore. She leaves. And then has that moment, the moment of clarity, and he goes and talks to that awful receptionist.
Oh, she was terrible.
The drugs are wearing off.
Yeah. And has that classic Steve Martin moment, the breaking moment that Steve Martin is so good at, right? And she's not there to keep him from doing it.
I like that they both have that moment in the movie.
Yeah.
She has that breakdown moment as well at the police station, and this is what's going on. I mean, it gets something done at that point when you do come up against that barrier of somebody who isn't willing to help, because and that's more this movie in the remake, where you kind of hit people who aren't nice and aren't willing to help. It's like, I don't give a fuck about you. That's kind of what's going on in the remake here. It's like, look, I haven't eaten, and we've lost our bags, and we're homeless because we've been thrown and mugged. It's like, get some shit done.
Yeah, and
I've been trying so hard, and I'm getting nothing from you.
And that cop is the first and only person in the whole movie to show them any empathy.
And then Steve Martin has his breakdown moment just before that job interview as well, and that's what gets him in the door, because she wasn't even going to let it happen.
Yeah.
Because he was an hour late.
Well, he had trouble getting off the elevator. Oh, the scene with the guy, Paul. in the elevator. He's like, you can get off. He's like, no, I can't do it. He's like, I can't do it either.
Yeah. You get me, buddy.
I laughed out.
What was the line where it was like Steve Martin was like, yeah, okay, that's too much.
Yeah.
I gotta get out. I don't want to be like that guy.
Because Gwen's like, don't listen to this guy. He's like, he understands me in a way that you don't. You can't handle it.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. So Paul inadvertently helps get him off the elevator.
Yes.
Yeah, and at 8 minutes shorter, I think it's about 8 minutes shorter. It's
90 minutes exactly for the remake, and the original movie is 101, so it is 11 minutes shorter.
11 minutes shorter. But yeah, it's just, I mean, the first movie, it felt way longer.
Oh, yes.
So much longer.
You sent me a text about the Paul Simon music being very 70s. Or not Paul Simon. I'm sorry, it was Quincy Jones who did it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It was Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
Who's a legend in his own right, but it definitely was of the era.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't say I didn't like it. I'm just like, oh, yeah, this is so 70s.
Yeah, but I'm like, it is 1970.
Yeah.
What else would it be?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right?
And that 90 minutes, though, went by quite quickly.
Yeah, it went by a lot faster because I was enjoying the movie more.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the problem when you have a character you can't grab onto, despite having better ratings on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. If you read the wiki and the reviews from like Siskel and Ebert and stuff, everybody was very much of like middle of the road 50%. Like it's more a lot of situational cringe comedy as opposed to character development. And it gets tiresome. It's exhausting. That movie is exhausting after a while. Well, the remake gives you breaks.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if that isn't just sort of a cultural thing, because I mean, when I think of kind of like just the American comedy, like down in the States, there's a lot more cringe stuff that gets really huge. And I don't think it's as big here or other places.
Yeah, and that could be a cultural thing because we do have Canadian content. There's a lot of British stuff that made it over here as well, so we tend to kind of like somewhere in the middle. We like that smarter comedy, as well as the pratfalls and cringe comedy as well. We can appreciate a broader spectrum of comedy. I'm not saying Americans can't, but I think it's just a case of accessibility of different stuff, and we just had more of it here.
Well, think of American Pie. American Pie is all cringe comedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of their TV shows, like Jackass, that was huge because you watch people get injured and it's
and do really
cringe-worthy.
cringy things. Yeah, and I think that's why I enjoy the remake so much better, is because they found a much better balance of the cringe versus the character development and some really quite witty dialogue. Right? And I never found any of the dialogue in the original witty per se. It was well written.
It was definitely well written.
But it wasn't witty. Like none of the dialogue helped move the movie forward, really. And there was none of those like one-line drops that just sort of punctuated a joke or punctuated a scene to give you the joke.
Oh, and if I had to hear the phrase, a large brown one and a small gray, I was going to shoot myself.
Yeah.
Because how many times do you hear that phrase in that movie?
A lot. Yeah.
I don't care.
I like how they kind of resolve that in the remake where she actually sketches the...
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're really good.
Yeah, and, it's like, and then when they find it, it's like, your drawing really helped.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I definitely know we don't have this bag because it was so well drawn.
Yeah.
So they do get around some of those problem moments, and I think that's where the time snippets happen as well. They're taking out a lot of segments just so they can get the character development in, and unfortunately I think this movie got shit on for it. I still don't know what exactly and why exactly people like it less, but I'm guessing they never saw the first one.
Well, I think they did, but they just might have rose-colored glasses about it, because like there's some of those quote-unquote classic comedies and stuff done by Neil Simon, and because these certain names are attached, it's supposed to be good and people think they have to appreciate it, but you don't.
Let's face it, neither one of these are great.
No, neither of them are great movies, but I will say...
But the second was very watchable.
Yeah, and I think it's a case of maybe just some time needed to pass or whatever. Maybe it was just the wrong movie at the wrong time.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me about the original is in 1970, George was already written as an outdated archetype.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it was more written for stage for visuals.
Yeah.
Where they kind of tweaked it in the remake. And there were certain things like the strikes and all those the garbage strike and the transit strike and the cab strike, like all of that stuff wasn't in the film because we were so far removed from those strikes that happened in the 60s that informed the 1970 film. So things that aren't relatable. And New York had gentrified quite a bit by that, and is even more so now.
So a garbage strike wouldn't have looked as impactful.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same reputation it did in 1970 as one of the most hostile, violent cities in the world.
Yeah, or even the mid-'80s, because I remember correctly there was a big garbage strike in the 80s too. I remember it being in the media when I was a teenager.
It's got a very different reputation than it used to. So they couldn't do that anymore.
No.
And even then, they presented New York in the original film, and despite a lot of bad stuff happening to these characters and New York going through a lot of strikes, everybody was really nice to them in New York.
Yes. Yeah.
Except for the mugger. Actually, he was even pretty nice.
Yeah.
As far as muggers go, they got off pretty lucky.
Very polite.
Yeah, he was very, very polite.
How often do you get to meet Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Who's not really...
Not really, but under different circumstances. Yeah.
I can't believe they bought that because he started off with all those cliched lines.
Yep.
That a guy who asked for money, like everybody's heard it.
Yeah.
And they even mentioned, they make some commentary about that in the original film, and I like how they kind of reverse it. They're like, oh, come on, we're not going to follow that. But hey, when he says he's Andrew Lloyd Webber, suddenly that's plausible.
Yeah.
I know, that's the weird part.
Well, he looks enough like Andrew Lloyd Webber that, I mean, even I bought it. That I thought
I wouldn't know if Andrew Lloyd Webber was standing in front of me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have seen photos of him, and he looks enough like him.
Well, that's
that
true.
I wasn't sure.
You did think it was him.
Yeah, so I did fall for it, yeah.
To be honest, sometimes when you get that big rigmarole, and like it's only $5, if you give me a good enough story, the entertainment is worth that $5 to me. I'd be like, you know what? I don't believe a word of it, but it's pretty impressive that you came up with all of that. So here's $5 for my entertainment.
And no, I'm not following you. Go away.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and that's certainly. Let's get off the street so we can see your wallet. It's like, no. How about you come to our hotel? I'll give you the money at the hotel.
Yeah.
In front of people. That have security.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Any last thoughts about the out-of-towners?
I have to say, like, Goldie Hawn, Steve Martin, I like their chemistry. She's so amazing, and, like, she looks really good in this movie. Like, she's ageless. She's a bit of a Highlander.
I certainly
Very strange.
don't think the fault of the original film comes down to chemistry or acting jobs.
No.
It's just
a script problem.
It's a script problem.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't even say it's a direction problem because Arthur Hiller's directed some great films.
Yeah, no, and I think it's directed well as well. It just they needed to tweak it a little bit more. And like, hey, wow, our main character is not likable at all.
Yeah.
This is going to be a rough ride.
But I will say
lack
that
of recognition in that regard.
This is the second Versus episode in a row where we've actually liked the remake more than the original.
It's true. That don't happen too often, especially two in a row.
Often. Yeah. Well, it's like I say, when you make the right tweaks to it and make it like figure out what the problems were in the first one, which they did a lot. They fixed a lot of the problems.
Okay,
not all of them, but a lot.
The New York in the original film. Would you go visit it as depicted in that movie?
At that particular moment in time, hell no.
No.
If I knew there was a garbage strike, there's no way.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
the New York
how did they not know?
The New York in '99.
You know what? Say what you will about Giuliani, he did a good job of cleaning up New York. Like, under his sort of tenure.
I can't. I didn't live there. I wasn't there, and New Yorkers certainly feel strongly about it. But yes, I think New York post Giuliani and even during Giuliani probably did all right.
Who knows?
We don't live there.
Yeah, the current mayor is not a media whore like Giuliani was.
Yeah, yeah, that was a thing. I heard too much about it. I saw his face too much. I think.
Oh yeah, he would just make cameos in all sorts of movies.
Yeah.
He was all over the place.
Yeah, and he was always in the news.
I actually thought he was an actor because for a long time when I was younger, this Giuliani guy, I didn't realize he was the real life mayor because he kept popping up in movies
as the mayor of New York.
As the mayor,
I'm like, I didn't know he was the real mayor of New York at the time.
But looking at who he's buddies with now, that does tell you a lot.
Yeah,
they both
it does.
fall along the same lines of that whorishness.
Yes, and like I said, to say what you will about him, the one thing that he can say.
Hey, we've got a prime minister who will chop his teeth at any camera.
True.
Yeah.
So,
but we also but the guy running against him also looks like it puts the lotion on its skin type of stuff. Like I don't think the guy blinks, and that freaks me out.
Oh yeah, no, we all lose this election.
Yeah,
we all lose.
Mind you, we did. Speaking, it's not just him. Like I was watching a bunch of Corner Gas, and all the prime ministers made a cameo in Corner Gas at one point during their tenure.
Yep.
Well, that's Interesting.
Yeah. So
it's not something we're super known for, but corner gas was a Canadian staple. So
yeah. Canadian treasure. But
sure.
The remake's watchable.
Yeah.
It's very watchable.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that was it for the Out-of-Towners. If you dug that, show us a little love on our social media. We are at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion Remake on Facebook and Instagram, and Invasion the Remake at gmail.com. And, of course, you can find our show. Tell everybody where to find the show, because you already know how. You can find us in a ton of different places. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn Radio, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, and so many more, even
frickin' YouTube.
So you can find us everywhere, help people get their
earballs
on the show.
And don't forget, next week
it begins. All the Horror begins. All the Horror is a podcast horror convention for your ears, and we will be part of that. You can follow there's like 31 podcasts over 31 days of October, a different one dropping every day with
over
special
40
guests.
episodes dropping actually.
40 now, so look at that. That's crazy. And you can follow at All the Horror 18 on Twitter and the hashtag All the Horror, and there's a Facebook group now.
There is?
And these are the central hubs where you can find out which podcasts are dropping on which days. They'll be on their own feeds. There'll be links to all of those shows as they drop each day in October.
Facebook, there's conversations about any type of horror you want to talk about. It's not just movies, it's books, it's art, it's comic books, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, and of course we are on All the Horror, and we do horror themed throughout October, so get ready for the scary. We're gonna ease in next week. Is going to be more of a horror family comedy kind of thing, and before we get too dark, we're also going to be watching a horror movie for every day of October, 31 horror movies over 31 days that we have never seen before. And then we're going to talk about them. And they'll culminate in a couple of specials that will drop in November because, we can't drop it in October because we're watching them every day. We're going to do it real. We're going to do it the real deal.
Absolutely.
We're not going to start early just to make it time out properly on the podcast. No. We'll let it happen naturally. It also gives you a little bit of a break. Once October's done, we'll have a different episode before All the Horror episodes drop. So,
yeah. And don't forget, go to tpublic/user/all the horror. There's 6 different t-shirt designs available. Awesome. All of them are for sale. Obviously for sale. They're on sale. They go on sale when TeePublic puts on a sale. But all proceeds go to Scares That Care. There's no profit being made here. It's all going to charity. We just thought it would be a good way to sort of show our support. Because let's face it, podcasters are all broke. We don't have a lot of money in our own pockets, so we're hoping to get some money out of yours and into the hands of some other people who need it.
Exactly.
Yes. So help this worthwhile kids charity. And do a good thing by wearing something scary on your chest.
Yeah, and it's I have some TeePublic shirts. Just telling you, the quality is really good on them. There's some comfy shirts they got.
And don't worry, we'll get our own store up and running. It's our running joke of all of our T-shirt ideas that aren't T-shirts.
Yeah.
So we'll get something going, but we'll get out of the way of this charitable TeePublic thing for All the Horror, and maybe for 2020 we'll get a store up so you can buy some Invasion merch.
Maybe even in time for Christmas so you can buy it for your friends.
Maybe.
Ooh. Yes, have your friends give all the Invasion stuff. And then, at Christmas dinner you can play us and then watch your family's faces. It'll be fun.
They'll be
if Christmas dinner wasn't awkward enough.
What is this trash?
Sick and tired of your family asking why you're not married and don't have children? Put on Invasion of the Remake.
This is why.
Can we use that as our new promo?
We can.
We could put that in there.
Invasion of the Remake for when you don't want to talk to your family.
I love it. Look for that on other podcasts coming soon.
Yes.
We do need to update our promo. So. Okay, that was the Out-of-Towners. I'm going to stay here. Yeah. I've been Jason.
I'm always Sam.
I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
Gwen? Gwen? They want me. Vice presidency doubled the salary. Company car, they'll find us an apartment, any neighborhood we want, and our choice of schools for the kids, our private schools. And we got 2 seats for all the New York Giants home games and a season subscription to the ballet. They're crazy about me. Broken tooth and all.
What did you say, George?
What did I say? Yeah. What do you think I said?
I don't know, George. I was hoping you would say no. I was hoping you would say that you and your wife don't really belong in New York. You wanted to live the rest of your life in Ohio. But you never wanted to see a big city again as long as you live. But you don't want to live here or in Chicago or San Francisco or New Orleans or Paris or any other place where people have to live on top of each other. And they don't have enough room to walk or to breathe or to smile at each other. And you don't want to step on garbage in the streets or be attacked by dogs or have to give away watches in the middle of your sleep to men in black capes. That you were through traveling on trains that had no place to sit and no food to eat. And you didn't want to fly in airplanes that have no place to land and no luggage for you when you land there. You wish you never came here. The only thing in the world you really wanted was to pick up your wife and carry her to the airport and fly home and live happily ever after. That's what I was hoping you would say, George.
That's funny. That's what I told him. Word for word.
No.